shit. Talking about Duke's prior career as a pro soccer player that he gave up at 12. But I was just saying, it's like that age, I don't know what the fuck I was doing at 12. Most kids aren't doing anything. I think it's like a really rare thing that you got that immersed, you were that focused on a singular goal at 12.
Totally. I love hearing that because I think a lot of my friends from college and stuff I'm still great friends with were kind of just hanging for the most part. But, and everyone goes at their own pace. But like, yeah, when I was 12, when I kind of gave up, I was such a passionate soccer player, like Olympic development program, and then started surfing on the side. And then it was the year I decided I did like a couple surf contests casually, and I was like, I want to do the NSSA, which is basically like the club soccer of surfing. And had to figure out, my parents were like, go for it. But my mom was like, we've already thrown in, we've done everything for soccer. Now this is up to you, surfing a little bit. So I had to, I would get all the surfing brochures myself at 12, figure it all out. I figured out how to sign up for it. They're obviously supportive once I got the info, but I just remember it not being easy to do. It's kind of like finding my own acting class when I was like 20 back in LA, but not easy to find a good one. But my point is about the passion thing at 12. I looked at other kids that were like famous already, like Kolohe Dino, who, he's considered even still one of the top 10 surfers in the world from San Clemente. I saw him, I was 12. He was probably 10 or 11. No, he was 11. And I remember it was probably the fifth surf contest I ever did. It was at Huntington Beach. And I already knew who he was, Kolohe Dino. He was kind of famous, just like in seeing Surf Magazine. At 11, there was probably like 3 kids like that around that age. And I remember going to the surf contest. You had to sign up for that day. So you're down there at 6:45 a.m., 6:30 a.m. Probably 6 a.m. Sun's just coming out. It's packed at the tent to sign up. You sign up. I didn't know anyone. You're so nervous. It's insane. You put it on such a pedestal. These kids are sponsored already. They have like Rip Curl stickers. It's like skateboarding and stuff. They have all the stickers and stuff. And you're just, you love it. And I saw Kolohe Dino. He was sponsored by Oakley, which I eventually became sponsored by.
No
His
shit.
dad. Yeah. I was sponsored
That's
by
a
like
big deal.
yeah. And his dad was actually an ex-pro surfer, guru of San Clemente, named Dino Andino. Interesting name. He was the team manager for surfing at Oakley. And so I remember seeing Kolohe Dino, little toe-headed, blonde, 11-year-old, already had the eye of the tiger. Like, look an adult at 11. White wetsuit, which is pretty unorthodox. Everyone in surfing tries to be cool, wear black, all black. He was wearing white, all white. Oakley wetsuit, which Oakley doesn't even make wetsuits. It's not like Billabong or something. They hire another company from Japan called Be Wet to make wetsuits, and then they customize them and put the Oakley. Bottom line is, an Oakley wetsuit cost them about $1,500 to make, opposed to $400, $300. Okay. And this 11-year-old kid's getting it. And then I see him. He's the only surfer on the water's edge. I remember the image like it was yesterday. At 11, he's already signed up for the contest. He's out there by himself, giant waves. He's at the water's edge, and he goes out by himself. And the sun's just starting to like crack now. And you see the first big wave, and he's just flying down it. Just, balls to the wall, just crushing it. And, you find out at a certain point in a lot of sports, the foundation, like what they'll eventually become as pros, they already have that foundation at a certain level, at a certain age. Rob Machado, a lot of these famous legendary surfers, they were basically already as good as they'll ever be when they were 12 years old.
They don't progress past 12.
They progress with the subtleties, whether it's the tricks, whether it's, really coming into their bodies, whatever. But as far as like a foundation, like they look like pros when they're 12.
Yeah.
I did not. I probably peaked As far as
Because you
form.
started later.
What?
Because you started later.
Yeah. Start
Because when you
later.
start that young, it's like it's just part of you. Like I see some kids
Yeah.
snowboarding and shit at like
Yeah.
6. Like they've been doing it as long as they've been walking, and it just becomes muscle memory.
Well,
It's
here's like on the note of sports and everything, what I've kind of come to realize. It's not like the surfers today are better than they used to be when, they're not better. And that's because you have a certain amount of years of development. And just because you start when you're 7 doesn't mean you're going to get to a higher level than other people. There's kind of a bar. And once you get to that bar, then it's like who has more imagination. That's when talent comes into play,
yeah,
perseverance. But like I saw kids that were like also kind of legends already when they were 12,
right.
10. Um, and they never got that much better. Like you look at them at 22 and they're not even like top pros or anything at all.
And that's
Um,
not a matter of discipline or practice. It's just the way it is.
I mean, it could be something to discipline and practice, but whatever you have to get to a certain level. And some people just never get there no matter how early they start. That's why my philosophy on stuff now is like, I don't think you can peak just because you're a certain age. Like for myself, surfing, when I was surfing a ton last summer, I feel like I'm still. Why wouldn't I want to get better?
Right.
Why wouldn't I want to like dream bigger and push harder and get more? Because I truly, when I surf, like if I'm on and I've been surfing a lot, I feel so free. Like, and you just get better and better and better. Um, you gotta always push. You gotta always do
I
that.
don't think
And
there's ever a ceiling for any kind of discipline. Like
right,
bringing it back to the podcast,
yeah,
acting, I don't think there's a ceiling to that. You see, even if you're like Jack Nicholson, the thing about those guys is like if you're on the cutting edge of it and you're so fucking good, like you're objectively better than 99% of actors, you're then leading the charge. And I think the potential is always there to just continue turning that screw. Like it's that whole analogy of turning the screw. It's like at first there are huge gains. Like even talking about weightlifting, like newbie gains are crazy. Like you start going to the gym, if you hadn't gone to the gym for your entire life, the first like 6 months, year, the gains are fucking insane. But then the longer you're working out, more years you put in and everything, the turn of the screw becomes harder. Does that make sense? So
yeah.
like you've been working out for 10 years. It's like, yeah, you might make these micro gains, but I mean those are important because how do you get to be the best? It's by continually like sharpening and turning that screw.
We've talked about this before, but about some people reach their goal and then you're like, now what? I'm still empty inside. And I just saw this pro surfer that I've referred to before, and he just finished second in the world for this thing. And he left this whole speech saying that it's amazing. I thought I'd get to this point and that I'd feel like this sense of accomplishment and everything. He's like, I feel, in fact, I'm gonna pull it up and read it real quick, what he said.
Cool.
It's so relevant, I think,
And while
to
you're
this.
pulling that up, I think it's worth touching on how if you stick with one discipline from the time that you're 2 till now, it's like you're at a disproportionate advantage. If you put all your eggs in one basket, it's just that time accelerator. It's like, but at the same time, you have to
Uh-huh.
land on the right thing. I think it's really rare for someone at 2, like if you're like 2, your parents are obviously guiding that shit. It shocks me that your parents didn't really have any influence when it came to the soccer stuff because that is really fucking rare. Like if you're below the age of 10, it's usually parents just, they have an idea of what your future is going to be like.
And
But
I think I'm starting to give more weight to individual personalities. Not that anything's better or worse, but like I was obsessive with things from the time I was, I would watch when I was 7, I'd watch movies 100 times. Like
yeah,
I was obsessive. And when I was in soccer, I would sleep with a soccer ball in my bed. I was so
Dude,
obsessed
I
with the
love
different
that.
soccer balls and stuff. Yeah,
That's like a movie.
it's out of a movie. My dad was the same way with tennis. He was
Yeah,
never not playing tennis when he was a kid.
right.
I imagine on some level he was the same way with acting. But it's just that eye of the tiger. That's why in sports, you just got to keep raising level. Kelly Slater, why is he the best surfer of all time?
Yeah.
Continues to get better and adapt and push himself and go to new lengths. He's got it's not that like, oh, there's more tricks. He truly has such a imagination and like zest for he's got such a mojo and he's surfing. And I
I
think
think I think
that's everything.
the one factor that ties all successful people together is like there's an element of that obsessive nature. It's just like different disciplines. I think in order to be successful, you have to be obsessed to a certain degree. It's like
Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger says whatever he does, he has to make it fun. And once it becomes fun, it's like, what, if you're doing something, make it fun. That's easy to say, but
and it's easier to stick with something if it's fun. It's got to be something that you like. Why would you become obsessive over something if it's like
yeah, I
excruciating,
mean,
you know?
obviously in life you got to do things you don't want to do, but
True.
it's kind of I think that's kind of like an encouragement to take ownership of something. You're doing something,
Yeah.
find a way to make it your own, get underneath it.
Yeah, and why wouldn't you want to be the best? Why wouldn't you want to take it to the 100th degree? If you really love something, and look, this is like also a difference in perspective from a lot of people. A lot of people, have hobbies and there's nothing wrong with that. It's like a difference in mindset. I think like the most, like if you're looking at the top 1% of people, the amount of competition that's out there for any industry, you have to have a level of obsession.
Totally. I think there's a lot of things that encourage it. I mean, my dad, anything he's gotten obsessed over, it's usually he puts money behind it. He bets, he literally gambles.
Right.
He's a gambler. So like, he got into golf because he was betting on the golf constantly with friends. And it made him care a lot more and it became fun.
Having skin in the game like that changes everything.
100%. Skin in the let me read this thing. So Griffin Colapinto, he's number 2 in the world. I still think he's not as good as the guys I loved 10 years ago. Mick Fanning, Joel Parkinson, these other guys, but he's obviously incredible, not to take anything away from him. And he seems like a really nice person too. He goes, so I came here to share my experience of success. This year, I finished second in the world after a full season of 10 events. I look at that on paper and expect to feel an abundance of joy. But for some reason, I feel nothing, and I can't understand why. So I try to think harder and feel harder, but I only seem to fall further into the trap. What's happening? What is this all for? Do I deserve this? Why do I have to work so hard to feel nothing? Some thoughts that I'm having. This develops into unease, low-level anxiety that I can't quite put my finger on. Feeling scared to acknowledge this feeling. Distracting myself with randomness to escape that anxiety. And when I'm back with myself, the anxiety builds and anxiety is back. Over time, if we don't confront these things, that they build and we fall deeper into the trap. So what I've realized with the help of journaling, meditating, and talking, my spiritual accomplice, is that I've tended to look for a result or an achievement to give my feelings of ecstasy. And most of the time, that's not how it works. In the moment of the event unfolding is when we feel the most. That's because we are in on the moment, and that's all that we are focused on. But once that moment is over, but I'm getting all over the place here. So it's in the moment activities that we feel the best. We can't expect to keep feeling the same joy days after the event by living in the past.
Right.
I think that's cool. So I'm deciding to let go of the attachment to an expected feeling. What's most important is focusing on the tiny details of our day right now. To practice sadhana, a spiritual practice of life. Every moment is an opportunity to become closer to awareness of what we're feeling, thinking, speaking, and so on. I'm sharing this because if there's anyone else out there that can relate to this and it can help them realize too what's happening, blah, 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 blah. By the way, that's exactly what Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, was saying. I just watched this documentary on him. You know, he was the Heisman winner, freshman Heisman Trophy winner in football, never been done before. That happened 5 years ago, and they have a documentary about him now on Netflix, called Untold, and shows how he spiraled out of control. But it's fascinating. It shows his upbringing, what taught him the military precision of football, and then once he got there, he had this spirit of just savagery that took him to, coming from nothing to beating Alabama, the best football
Right.
program country, and then he felt nothing after that though, and he got to the NFL and he just burned out in 2 seconds. But I feel like at least this guy Griffin Colapinto, he's been open about this stuff, and I really respect that he's able to talk about it, because I feel so fortunate to know that what you and I talk about, that when you accomplish your goals, you're
Mhm.
not going to feel any different than you do right now. It's all gravy. So it's like there's a lot of tools to mitigate that. A is like, once you get to that point, you still gotta live every day anew. Don't
Mhm.
stay in the past. So it's like, you gotta be at ease. Problems might come up. You try to help people laugh along the way and set new goals. I think striving is like a selfish thing. It's fun to strive. That's like something to do to spin your wheels.
Yeah. And I think it's helpful to stay in your own lane too and realize that you're only going up against yourself. Like if you're just reaching for, if your only goal was to win an Oscar, and then when you've got the Oscar in your hand, you're giving your speech, and then you walk off that stage, it's like, what the fuck now? And for me, I see it from like a project to project basis. Like I don't care. I mean, I for sure do care where my projects go, like how many people see it, all that shit. But ultimately, the thing I care most about is like challenging myself from like, is this screenplay gonna be, am I gonna be able to push like a little further out than I've been able to do in the past? Like continually setting up your own things where it's just you versus yourself, you against yourself, thinking about your past and like what you've accomplished so far. But I think from a creative perspective, it's a little different from sports, but because it's like not as objective. It's like I think as an artist, you're constantly evolving and you're constantly trying to, you know, get into like new territory. And I feel like just by sticking in your own lane as opposed to thinking about you versus that guy, or even there's the trophy that was set up by like another person, you setting up your own pursuits and just using that as the benchmark, I think is helpful.
100%. It's look, also you got to be thankful for everything you have. I mean, and like pursue happiness. Count what you're fortunate for.
I think happiness is a byproduct. I don't know if you can pursue it.
Um, define it how you will. But my point is, like, some people don't care about happiness, and I like
Right.
do
Where it's just
that.
goal oriented and that's it. Right.
Uh, Not even necessarily. People like to wall up in misery.
Yeah. Why do people like to wallow in misery?
Because they recognize that like the human experience can just be miserable, and it's like you start to feel tortured and have all these bad things. You have really bad things happen in life,
Yeah.
obviously. And I think that you have to push yourself to try to find happiness. Or find, like, happiness is maybe not, sometimes people get triggered by that word even, but uh, you know, that's another way to define it. I mean,
It's almost
fun,
like, yeah,
fun,
fun.
like find fun, find things to laugh about. That makes you actually feel good. That's what I'm talking about, is feeling good.
Yeah.
Um, and I think you actually have to change your attitude to find that, be positive, uh, and gratitude, and just saying like, I'm thankful that I can see, that I can hear, that I'm alive, that I can think, because other people don't get to do that, and yet they still find things to be happy about. So, um, I think once you get super successful, you reach a goal, whatever, sometimes you think that you're not going to have any problems anymore. It's like, oh, now I thought I was going to be understood, that I was going to have no money problems, that I was going to have this and that. But then you have 25 other problems. So the problems that human experience is about suffering. It's about having fun. It's about doing all these things. But live day to day. That's, I like in AA, they say take it day by day.
I like that too. I really
Right.
like that. And it reminds me of this guy, David Sandberg, who's one of my biggest inspirations. He's the guy who made Lights Out, that blew up, and then he got the feature. He did the Shazam movies. And he said once he reached that spot, he made a YouTube video on it where it's like once he reached that spot of having studio movies and all this shit. And he's like, yeah, you know, it's a little better. You have a little more money and everything. But he's like, I was a miserable, like self-hating son of a bitch before. So I'm still a miserable, self-hating son of a bitch. And it's like, that's real, you know? But that's good to know though, because being on this other side, we're going to be there one day. And so just knowing that and not having that expectation is important.
Yeah. Adam Sandler did a funny Saturday Night Live sketch where he was like a travel agent, but he's like, do all these things, go to Italy, but just know when you get to Italy, you're still going to hate yourself. You're still going to be with your shitty family. You're still going to find things to get angry about. Enjoy the Coliseum, but just know when you see the Coliseum, you're still going to be in a fight with your little kid.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true, man. Are you a big traveler? Because that's something that I've realized is like, we got a special guest. Something that I realize is like just going to another place. It's like it's cool to experience like a different culture or whatever, or see different, but ultimately you're just in a different place, eating different food.
Otto.
Hey, Otto.
Otto.
Back from the day job. But yeah, I mean, are you a big traveler or do you love traveling? I know your brother is.
Totally. I haven't traveled much lately just because I haven't really been able to afford it, and I feel like it's like grind time. But in general, I love nothing more than going, vacationing and
Yeah.
going on a surf trip or like somewhere tropical and playing tennis and eating good food and shit. Or like a writing retreat would be lovely. Or
Dude, have you done that before or do we always just talk about it? A writing
I've
retreat?
I've kind of like gone with my dad and just like come up with a ton of material. Like even on our road trip that we did, we came up with Duke of the Valley through it.
Right. I think you were local, but you told me about how you were at like a bar or something and he was like, I'm
Yeah.
going to the bathroom when I come back.
Yep.
I'm gonna have an idea. It's
It's
cool to have someone like that to hold you accountable.
it's little stuff like that that does happen on road trips too. It's like you set out, you make your little goals, and
Yeah.
then you're like, oh, out at dinner, at the bar, and you just, my dad's pretty relentless, as we've talked about, to come up with stuff. So,
Dude, I've created this like, or I'm trying to create this brand of like, yeah, I hustle all the fucking time. I'm really disciplined. Like, that's my shit, right? But ultimately, it doesn't take that much. Like, so I finished my first draft of my latest screenplay yesterday, and it took me a month. But dude, literally every day, an hour. And I know you said that's a lot. Like, yeah, at the end of the week, it stacks up. It's 7 hours, but anyone can find anyone in any situation, even if you have kids, even if your life is kind of shit or whatever, you can find an hour out of your day. And to be able to like produce a screenplay or whatever project you're into, just by like everyday consistency, 1 hour is like, it's the little things that add up. That's all it
totally.
takes. Just a little like tweak, and then you're just off.
Congrats on that, by the way, too.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, it's I don't know how to perfect your craft, how to get better.
Acting's a little more dicey. If I were an actor, I would just also be like a director and writer and producer and all that shit. Like, I don't even know. I mean, I have a lot of respect. I know a lot of actors, dude, and I have a lot of respect for, working on a piece of material for a self tape that might not see the light of day. The only difference between that and like the stuff I make is I might not get a lot of views on every project, but I'm coming out with something, you know?
Yeah, got
That's
something to go for it.
yeah, but I have a lot of respect for yeah.
There's a agent that has an office next door to my day job, and I heard a guy there today. I think it was a casting director, or like an assistant, and he made a phone call reaching out to like this actor's agent saying, "Hey, so I think your client is out of town, but we'd love to have him in to read for this part. We'd love to give him a call back, and it's gonna happen today at 4:30, even though it's like already 3:30. And like we'd really love to have him in." And I'm just like, you know what that is? At least it comes off this way to me. It's like them just being like, fuck it. We want to see this person. We're working today. Let's see if this person will just like throw their life away and just come audition for us
Dude,
because
and them mentioning that they like know they're out of town. Like there's a note probably in his card or something.
maybe it's just that he like wasn't responsive to the
Oh,
callback.
okay. But yeah, like giving an hour's notice, dude, fuck all of that. Fuck all of that. And
I partly don't blame them because like they're in the office, so they're thinking like, let's see what we can get. Like I don't really blame the inquiring. I'd still fuck all that. I agree, obviously, but I'm just the nature of it is just like savage.
and I think the nature of that comes because there's so much competition and there's so much supply. So them
Yeah.
throwing the dart like 100 times and they'll probably get 5 people who can come in within the hour. Dude, it's crazy. It's fucking crazy. And I don't want to discourage anyone from like acting. But again, if I were an actor, I'd be a producer, be a writer, director. I'd be a cinematographer, you know?
I'd love to create something where like there's a better system for making movies together. Like directors can get linked up with actors, can get linked up with a cinematographer. It's like Facebook, but for filmmakers and actors.
You mean like a social kind of
Sure.
hub for people to are you talking about people who like are kind of not quite like they're not repped, they're not, they're just trying for opportunities, or are you saying everyone in the pool?
Everyone's allowed.
I think you just want to cut out the that's basically what we've got, but you're cutting out like the middlemen, like you're cutting out the agents and
Wait, hear me out here. Everyone's allowed. You have a rating system. So if you're uh fucking what's the director that did Black Swan? Can I think of his name? Requiem for a Dream.
Darren Aronofsky.
If you're Darren Aronofsky, you got a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, but who's making these ratings?
He doesn't have to respond. You get it's like a point system. So it's like if you're Academy Award nominated, you get something. If you went to film school, you get a rating. If you did this, if you did that, and you have there's different categories, and it's a social network. So you can like apply, sign up to be a part of these things, but you're basically representing yourself. And so I imagine it would make it sort of coveted to be a part of like these small, the lower level of the totem pole. Because maybe there are some good shits being made and people are impassioned and making a lot of stuff. There's just, I don't know how you get the big shots to sign up, but maybe they would because they want to be on the front lines.
Side.
Yeah, like it's just basically where that's coming from is there's too much opportunity lost because of the system.
I agree.
There's too much like miscommunication, the casting people having to say, well, can you come in an hour? You can't. All right, then you don't have the part. Uh, I want it to be more like
Yeah.
real, which is what social media does. It connects people. So it's like if you're going to, if you like my acting work, someone can fucking hit you up about it. And it's expected that you would.
Right.
And everyone posts something, but it's like a cool, easy social network.
Dude, there isn't a need for casting directors and there isn't a need for reps. Truly, if we're really talking about setting up productions, the only value that they provide are like lack of access, so that you're like, they're basically vetting, like they're vetters in order to cut through all the shit. So if
Yeah.
there was a way that you could have like an open ecosystem like that, but you're still able to vet through the shit, then
But
yeah,
I like the vetting thing is the rating system.
exactly. Yeah, if you're a 1 or a 0.2,
Or whatever it is, like you have a, like an A or a B, like in restaurants or something.
yeah. Would
Or
you
like,
slide down that scale if you're like, you don't come out with a hit or something, like, you
yeah,
get
you,
on
yeah,
the movie.
you, I mean, you could get super detailed about the criteria. I would love to. I could come up with it and really quickly.
The whole system does feel kind of outdated.
It
And I
really
don't
does.
have direct experience with reps, but just from an outsider perspective, it feels really outdated. It feels like this, they're like in the studio system times. Like it doesn't feel like a current, modern, fresh,
A
like,
lot of people say the day of the big agencies is kind of done.
yeah. A lot of the top dogs don't even have reps. They have a lawyer and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's really at a crossroads with all this stuff. And if you're, yeah, you probably, if you're a bigwig, you probably don't even check your shit if you're on this website. You'd have an assistant do it for you. But I don't know. Shouldn't the goal be to make good stuff no matter what?
Yeah, dude, I agree. Yo, like talking about this, like getting features off the ground and everything. There's a book that's coming out October 30th called Independent Film Finance, a research-based guide to funding your movie. And it is by this professor at Loyola, and it's recommended by American Film Market. I'm stoked about it. I think like educating yourself on the process too can help set things up.
When does it come out?
Like October 30th. Gonna have to wait a little bit, but it's coming.
Oh, hold my breath.
I pre-ordered mine. But yeah, dude, I think I agree. I think the system's outdated, but also like I'm glad that we're able to educate ourselves more than we were like 10 years ago. Like for forever, information on financiers and distribution, all the shit that we don't want to learn about, but we kind of have to, is like it's more accessible now.
Totally. Um, I mean, the fact that you used to have to drive all over town auditions 3 a day.
Do you see a huge difference post pandemic? Before pandemic, did you still have to go in or was it mostly self tapes?
I wouldn't know really. I mean, before pandemic, I went to one audition in person. But the people that would really know, probably people that did like commercial auditions and shit.
Were you not really into acting before pandemic?
I was, but I had an agent and manager that were like non-existent.
Yeah.
I was just in acting classes.
Yeah.
Took me a while.
Dude, it's kind of wild. I didn't start taking this shit seriously until pandemic. Like 2020 was when I really started, which doesn't feel like that long ago at all.
I feel like I knew you before then, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I don't, but like, yeah, I was just kind of a guy out in LA, like, figuring shit out.
You weren't pursuing being a director?
Nah, I didn't know what the fuck I wanted. Isn't that crazy?
So you came to LA before committing to
100%.
because you knew you wanted to be in show business on one level.
Show business. Yeah, exactly. I went to acting school and I loved horror, but I didn't put like two and two together until the pandemic.
What popped it off for you?
Uh I think I made my first short and I was just like, this is the best thing ever. I think it's because I didn't realize what directors do. like I thought directors were cinematographers, and I always thought, well, like I'm not into, like I don't want to learn specs of cameras and all this boring shit. But once I learned it's just about visualizing the shots and then communicating that well, I'm like, this is the fucking best thing in the world.
Wow, you inspired me.
Yeah, bullshit.
I remember when I was, no, I'm serious. When I was like 15 or something, we were in Mexico, me and my friends were in Cabo, and we just wanted to make a little movie as a joke, but we started filming each other like on some type of camera for surfing. And one of us was like a cowboy or something. And I remember getting so into it and thinking like, whoa, what if we actually tell a real story here? Like, what would this cowboy be doing? What would really be happening at that time? And I wanted to capture that. I
Yeah,
was like, this feels artistic and like interesting.
100%, bro. And I love taking yourself back to those moments too, because you remember why you got in the
Yeah,
first place. It's important.
it is important. All right, brothel.
Always a pleasure. Feel
Always
better.
the best.
Hope you don't get sick.
I appreciate it, man. I need to go to sleep now.
All right,
Peace.
dog. Bye.